Hello my friends, my name is Dr. Bercik. Today we're going on a quest to uncover one of the greatest mysteries of biblical archaeology. Come with me as we take a closer look at Solomon's Temple. Solomon's Temple was built in the 10th century BC by the one and only King Solomon, son of David. Solomon's Temple had many different purposes, but his main dedication was to house the Ark of the Covenant. King David was denied the opportunity to build the temple by God, and thus the task fell onto Solomon. Solomon requested the aid of King Hiram of Tyre to provide both the quality materials and skilled craftsmanship. The Temple of Solomon was considered to be one of the most extravagant buildings ever created. And to help us take a closer look, we have architect Ryan Kozer to tell us more. So, Professor, tell us more about the dimensions of Solomon's Temple.
Well, Brian, according to the Bible, Solomon's Temple was a very tall building. On the outside, it was actually 120 cubits tall, and a cubit's actually an old standard of measuring, and it's measured from the inner part of your elbow to the tip of your middle finger, and we just say approximately a foot and a half. So it's actually 207 feet high, and the inside dimensions are 180 feet long, 90 feet wide, and 50 feet high.
So tell us about the surroundings of Solomon's Temple.
Had two courts. The inner court was the court of the priests, and this contained in the center a laver called the Brazen Sea, and along with many other lavers. Then beyond the inner court is the outer court, the Great Court, and this is where all the people gathered to worship.
So tell us about all the different chambers inside Solomon's Temple.
So Brian, Solomon's Temple consisted of quite a few chambers. These chambers were built about the temple on the southern, western, and northern sides. And these chambers formed a part of the building and were used for storage. And many of these chambers housed priests and were lavished with the greatest fine precious metals and jewels.
So explain to me about the holy place.
Well, Brian, the holy place is actually one of the most interesting sections of the temple. The holy place, also called the greater house or the temple, was of the same width and height of the Holy of Holies, which actually is an even more interesting place, but we'll get into that later. But the holy place is 40 cubits in length, and its walls were lined with cedar, and on the cedar was carved palm trees and open flowers, which were overlaid with gold. Chains of gold further marked it off from the holy.
Although we now have a vivid description of what the temple may have looked like, it is still unclear due to the lack of solid evidence. To tell us why, we have Dr. Bercik. So Brett, tell us why you think Solomon's Temple does not exist.
Well, Dr. Bercik, it's really quite simple. Show me any evidence at all where you can find principles of the temple itself. The only evidence that we have that supports it is actually coming straight from the Bible. And there's only 4 stories in it that are reasonable, that explain exactly what the massive temple is about. But archaeologists around the nation have all came to the same spots to search for it for years and years, and they've yet to find anything about it.
So you're saying nothing has been discovered on Solomon's Temple?
Well, not exactly. I mean, we have discovered one pomegranate statue that was discovered approximately 20 years ago, and supposedly, according to legends, it had its place in Solomon's Temple was on the top of a high priest's staff used for ritual services. But the negatives with that is that these similar pomegranates were found in multiple temples across Israel and Jerusalem at the time. So besides this, which has evidence along with an inscription in it that's supposedly supposed to say exactly where it was located, there's no evidence. You know, archaeologists have searched Megiddo year after year, which is a supposed site of Solomon's temple, and they found nothing. So I ask you, how are you supposed to prove where something is if you found nothing about it?
Well, Dr. Brett, the temple is found in the Book of Kings, chapter 3 to 12, Chronicles, chapter 1 to 10, and Ezekiel 40 to 30 of the Old Testament. The accounts found in this book give a full description of the building and the events leading up to the building of that magnificent structure and its destruction by Nebuchadnezzar in the years following the death of Solomon.
But Doctor, you're forgetting that those two stories were written at least 400 years after the supposed temple was destroyed and built. So you're saying that authors that weren't present during the time of the temple had enough knowledge about it to write that it was factual in the presence of their time. That makes no sense, and plus we have no other evidence, we have no physical evidence. Us archaeologists are all about the physical evidence. So when you go based on storytelling, that's sheer madness.
Being that there is no physical evidence, what is your take on Solomon's temple?
Well, it's quite simple, really. Solomon's temple is a metaphor, a standard biblical metaphor for one's mind, one's body. It's not a physical being. It's more of a symbolism of one's self-preservation, and that the Christian God has made everyone unique and everyone majestic. And so I believe that the temple's more represented by high priests as to mean that one should respect and glorify themselves as a person. You know, you can take that each chamber represents different body parts, and even that the Holy of Holies, as they say, can even be considered one's mind. So you take away all the physical evidence, and all you're left with is symbolism and metaphors.
That was a bold statement you had there. I never looked at it from that perspective before. I'm going to look into it further. Thank you. After my interview with both these scholars, I realized something. Solomon's temple remains to this day one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of archaeology. Not only is there no physical evidence of the temple itself, there's also no evidence that the Ark of the Covenant ever existed within the temple. People will continue to dispute the details of Solomon's temple, but I challenge you to dig deeper and find clues to better understand this great phenomenon. Until next time.
Oh.